Hey, what is going on, guys? So here today we're going to be reviewing the HGUC Penelope. Now I'm going to get this guy spinning around here, but it's up on the stand. It's very big and heavy, so it's going to be wobbling a little bit as we get it going around here, but hopefully it'll kind of stabilize itself out as it's turning around so you guys can get a good look around the kit. But yeah, so this kit, you can get it to stand up on its own, but it's going to be a real chore, and especially if you got it on a rotating base like this, it's not going to work. So I couldn't get it to stand on its own for the time being, but just know that you can get it to stand on your, especially because the tail stabilizer can act as a third leg. But again, in my case, for what I'm doing with this at the moment, I couldn't utilize that. But if you guys don't want to have this up on the stand, you don't necessarily have to. That said, it is a little bit kind of loosey-goosey in the legs, and there's a lot of weight to hold up, and the legs do seem to have a little bit of looseness in there, so definitely your best bet is going to be having this up on a stand, but we'll come back to that later on. Anyway, this kit is pretty intense. It's huge, it's crazy, it's got stuff all over the place. And did I mention that it's huge? Yeah, it's a really big kit, and this is a 1/44 scale kit, and it's bigger than a lot of master grades, as you'll see when we do some size comparisons here in a little bit. But it was a lot of fun to build, very interesting build. I built this up live streaming on Twitch, YouTube, and on my Facebook page, so if you missed that, you can go back and watch that. But whatever you may think about the design, this is definitely an interesting kit to build, so I enjoyed it quite a bit. If you guys want to check out the kits, check the link to HGUC Gundam store down below, or anything else there on their site. You can save 10% off everything using the coupon code ZakuAurelius10, so check out their site down below. But let's get on with the review, and you guys can see for yourselves if you really want to pick up this kit or not. But alright, so as for his accessories, obviously he's got the stand that's included that he's up on at the moment, and as for hand options, he's got the closed fists, which are on there at the moment as well. Then we also have a set of open hands like this for the left and right, which are very nicely detailed. Those look really good. And then we have a trigger finger hand for the right hand for holding the beam rifle. So already that's some really nice hand option parts. The fact that it has a closed fist and open hands is something that most HG kits don't include, so that's good. Then we've got the beam rifle, which is pretty nice. You got some nice color separation with the blue parts in there for that. This red part at the end is a separate part, but this red part in here for the camera, that's just a sticker over the top of that blue part there. But it's pretty simple, nothing moves on this at all. It just is held in the hand. You will have a seam line down the middle of this section here, and then on the underside, this white section here, seam line down the middle of that area there. We've got two clear pink beam saber effect parts, and there's actually 5 different places that you could actually put these. So just to demonstrate, the first one being in the end of the rifle, you can actually put this at the end of the rifle for a beam shooting effect. You can also place them here in the beam emitters on the shields and the forearms. You just pop that into there like so. Or if we go up here onto the top, these beam emitters on the top of the shoulders up here, you can also plug these into there. So if you've got some extra beam effect parts, you can give this guy, you know, one on each arm and one on each shoulder, and then one in the beam rifle as well. So you could have a ton of beam effect parts for this. So it's just a shame that it only came with the 2. Would have really been nice if it would have come with 2 sets of 2, so to give you 4 in total. And then you've got some option parts for here on the chest. If you flip this part out, just remove that, you've got an option of using these little gray chest vent parts instead, so you can choose which one you want to go for that, like so, if you prefer the look of that. So as you can see, if I'm just touching this while it's on the base, it's just wobbling all over the place, so just be a little bit careful about that. And I guess while we're on the topic, I'll show you the connection for this, because there's one more disappointing thing about the base. If I can get this out here, it's just this circular peg that plugs in up underneath into the hips like a normal kind of action base. Up in there, you can see that circular bit. The only thing about this that is unfortunate is just that you can't use any other type of action base for this. It doesn't give you any sort of connector for plugging this onto a standard action base. Now you could probably use this type of connector that is included with different action bases, so I'll try that here in a little bit to see how well that works, how stable that is, but as it is, it doesn't come with any dedicated connector for this other than just putting it on the stand that's included. And then finally, we've got a couple of parts that will be used here for the transformation, so you'll have to do a little bit of part swapping, just using these parts kind of just to connect stuff together. So you've got these 2 big parts here, and you've also got an optional part here, or an alternate part here for the hip joint. So actually, I'm just now realizing my mistake in that this is the wider one that's actually supposed to be used when you have the Gundam in its Penelope formation like this, so I actually should switch these. But there's the shorter version, or a not so wide version, is one you're actually supposed to use for when it's just the Odysseus Gundam without all the extra stuff on it. But honestly, I'm not sure if it's really going to be making that much of a difference. It just gives you a little bit wider width there between the legs. But what you will notice here is that we've got just straight up ball joint connections for the hips, which a lot of people were worried about, but I think you shouldn't really worry about that too much for a couple reasons. So with that, let's just get into the articulation and we'll talk more about that. Alright, so first thing that's going to be important to note is that this kit is just huge. It's really hard to hold on to this thing and just try to not make a mess of it. So I'm going to do my best to go through a little bit of the articulation here. So first off, the bird head does move up like that, but again, it's going to be, a lot of this stuff is going to be just for the transformation. As it is, it's kind of meant to just be down like that, just over the head, but the head itself will move up and down a little bit, so you've got a little bit of articulation there for that. We have a sticker for the eyes, and we have a sticker for this red camera there at the top of the head, but that's an actual red piece of plastic, so if you didn't want to use that sticker, that is its own just red piece of plastic under there. It just doesn't have the shiny look of the foil sticker. We also have two little red foil stickers for these cameras on the front of the torso here, but otherwise this is just all nice part separation here. On the bird head up here, we've got a yellow sticker underneath the clear part, a blue sticker underneath the clear part on the top of there. But this is all red plastic, red and yellow plastic here. But these little fins here, those are red stickers on there. And just while we're on the topic, these are red plastic parts here, here, and here, but this little fin at the top, that's a red sticker. And the last of our stickers is up inside the shoulder here. You can see there's that gray bit inside this red bit there in the circle. That's just a solid red piece of plastic with a gray sticker there in the center. So anyway, back to the articulation. In the torso, we're not going to have any movement forward or back, side to side, or anything like that. No rotation either, because this part at the front of the chest and this part here at the front of the waist are connected together, so you're not going to be able to move that in any way, shape, or form. Just with all the weight of everything, don't think you're really going to want to. Anyway, when I was putting it together, when you have these parts here on the front at first, they don't seem super solid in there, but then when you connect the backpack part onto there, that kind of locks into the front part as well, and it sort of like locks around the torso of the Odysseus Gundam inside there. So it does get a little bit more secure once you have everything attached onto it. But as you guys saw up on the shoulder, these bits here will move forward and back, and they're just on a ball joint, so you can kind of move them around and rotate them as you might want. The back half of this giant shoulder armor will also kind of move a little bit, or just completely pull out of there if you're not careful. But again, that's mostly for the transformation, as it is as just the Penelope Gundam. This stuff's not really supposed to move too much, but this front shoulder armor does also move a little bit as well. The arms, which is kind of what you actually really need to move, those will move out, but the giant shields on the side just kind of get in the way. So they're going to be kind of blocking you from some movement of the arm here. But otherwise, I mean, the articulation in general for this kit is just very basic HG articulation. So the arm will go up, but it's just kind of blocked by everything here. You have a point of rotation at the top of the arm, and you also have a point of rotation below the elbow joint. But again, it's going to be kind of hard to do a whole lot with that. You have a nice joint there in the elbow, but again, there's not really anywhere for the arm to really necessarily move. The wrist is just connected on a ball joint, but again, we just have our closed fists on there, and those do look really nice, so I'm really happy about the inclusion of those with this guy. Down here for these giant front skirts, these are on ball joints and they'll move around. It's kind of hard to get at to see, but underneath the front skirts you have the funnel missile firing ports there, which are pretty cool. Also, I should mention about this up here on the shoulders. This is not exactly a point of articulation, but a gimmick that you can open this up, but it doesn't actually move. You have to pull this part on the front off. There you go. And you can see there's 2 points to attach it, so then you attach it up to the higher point, and then that is also an opened up weapons gimmick there in the shoulders, so you can open that up like that with a little bit of detail inside. It does look pretty nice. Once that's painted, that'll probably look much better. And then moving down in here into the legs. So as I said, the hips are just on a ball joint, which you might find disappointing, but they can actually get really far out to the side just because of the way that the part is molded. It has a little kind of divot in there so that it's on a ball joint, but we can actually get them higher than most other ball joints would typically allow. So that's good, but the weight of the legs is going to bring them right back down. So they're just too heavy. They're just gonna flop down like that. And so even when you have this up on the base, it's kind of hard, I think, to get the legs to stay in like a wide position. You kind of have to hope that gravity doesn't get itself too involved. But otherwise, there on the thigh part, you have a seam line down the middle of those, but they're kind of hidden by everything. You may not want to worry too much about that. We have some rotation there at the top of the hip as well, and then the hip joint itself will also rotate side to side. So the hip joint, while it is just ball joints, it's kind of, like I said in the live stream, it's about the best ball joint that you could possibly have for a hip joint. It works perfectly fine and does everything you're going to need it to do, and just the weight of the leg is going to prevent you from doing a whole lot with it anyway. But you can bring the leg forward, and you do have a nice knee joint there, a nice double knee joint, which again is going to look cool if you can get it actually to stay in any sort of pose. And then as you're seeing, those little stand here on the side of the leg moves up and down, but that's just supposed to be down for the Penelope, and it just moves up when it's just in the Odysseus Gundam form. Up underneath the legs here, all those yellow parts, the like little thruster details there of those look really cool. Just be careful with those. In the manual, it does point out that you are supposed to press those together at certain points, so that you're being careful not to break anything, so just make sure you pay attention to the manual when you're building those. Up underneath the feet too, some nice detail around in there. As you can see, this toe will move up and down by itself. The feet themselves, you have a little bit of side to side movement there at the ankle, but not really a whole lot. Front and back also is going to be a little bit, but not a whole lot. The toe bend is really what's going to make the feet look their best. So the fact that it has that bend there at the toe is really nice. But oh boy, this thing is getting heavy, and as you can tell, so it's got some good points for articulation in there, but it's just going to be not really able to utilize a whole lot of that, unfortunately. And I guess we should also mention about the tail out the back here. So this upper part will move up and down on its own like that, and then the lower part will also extend in and out. So in its just shortened form like that, you can extend that out and then move that up and down, but again, kind of more so for the transformation. It's meant to just kind of be slung up in there for the time being. But again, just some nice color separation with the bits of gray and yellow poking out here, gray inside of there as well. This bit here, this gray bit at the very end of the tail, that is also a sticker, a gray sticker up inside of there, but here, those are actually gray parts. So alright, let me put this guy down and let's have some size comparisons, shall we? Alright, so first up, here it is compared to a couple of fellow HG kits. Now keep in mind, these are all in the same scale, 1/144 scale. We've got the RX-78 Gundam, and then the Moon Gundam, which you can see is quite a bit taller than the RX-78, but even the Moon Gundam is tiny compared to the Penelope here. This thing is absolutely gigantic. So I figure, why don't we also compare this to an MG? So here it is compared to the 1/100 scale Master Grade Powered Gym, and as you can see, it's just about the same height in terms of head height. Obviously the Penelope's still got way more bulk than the Gym there, but in about head height, it's right about the same height as your standard size 1/100 scale kit. So this thing definitely feels a lot more like an RE 1/100 scale kit than an HG, I gotta say. But alright, once you get some stuff moved around and just a little bit of transforming here, you get the flight form. So he's basically just kind of got his arms and legs put backwards and the bird head pulled over the top of his head and the shoulders and the front skirts kind of opened up. That's pretty much it. And this is his flight form. I think this is like the high speed form that the Gundam will use, yeah, for just utilizing all of that crazy stuff all over it to actually fly super fast. So anyway, it does look pretty cool, I gotta say. Just because, I mean, like, it, in theory, it doesn't seem like it should be very cool looking like this, but because it's such a crazy, outrageous design, I think it sort of somehow kind of works. I don't know, again, I can see how this is not going to be very appealing to a lot of people, but I don't know, for me it's kind of interesting. It's got an interesting look to it, I think. But you can actually separate all of the armor into the fixed flight unit separate from the Odysseus Gundam, which is on the inside of the Penelope here. So let's do that, separate them out, and we can see how that's going to look. And you guys will be able to get a look at the Odysseus Gundam inside there. Alright, so first up, just a quick look here at the fixed flight unit. Now this thing, I gotta say, also pretty cool. Once you remove the Gundam, it's pretty much kind of the same. You have the thrusters there from the legs, though more towards the back of it. And it definitely looks a lot more like something? I don't know, like some sort of flying bird, peacock, swan sort of mess of a thing. But hey, it's definitely something. The only thing that's kind of weirdly goofy about it is the feet. Kind of stuck on the bottom of it there, but they're not really going to be very noticeable with everything else going on. But it's an interesting look here for the fixed flight unit. I could see some people maybe wanting to display this like this, mostly considering how good the Odysseus Gundam, or how much better the Odysseus Gundam looks on its own. Kind of the Penelope looks cool with everything on there and everything, but the Odysseus Gundam looks pretty cool by itself, and so you might want to have this also, the fixed flight unit, also just by itself as well. So let's take a look at the Odysseus Gundam. Alright, white shoes and all, here is the Odysseus Gundam then by itself, and definitely a pretty cool looking Gundam, very unique as well. I mean, with the giant mohawk, the shields on the arms, the weird hook things coming up off the side of his legs now that those little kind of assist little legs are just folded up there. And the very big back skirt, which really looks like it'd be something from like a Xeon mobile suit or something, and looks a little bit out of place with the rest of the design, but I don't know, the whole design is so goofy still, even without all the extra armor of the Penelope on there. It's still a pretty odd looking design, but I gotta say, I think I do kind of prefer this more so than the Penelope. I don't know, I do like how over the top the Penelope is, but the Odysseus Gundam does also have a little bit more cool factor. Alright, and just to go over a couple of quick things about this, now we do also have a little bit of articulation here for this vent at the top of the shoulder, this shoulder armor in general. And for the shoulders, they're pretty interesting. They slide out like this, so when you're going to put all the Penelope armor on it, you need to slide that out. Otherwise, you're just going to have it pushed in like that for just the Odysseus Gundam. But they don't have any forward and back movement, unfortunately. I think the way that they made this, the connection in there, like that slides on the track, is a square piece. If they would have made that as a circle piece, they could have made this to actually have some forward and back articulation here, but then I guess they would have had to make the gap between the front and back half of the armor a little bit wider there to account for that. But as the shoulder joint is, you don't have any forward and back movement there with that. Also, we'll point out here on the shield, you have an extra weapon. This kind of folds out and over the top of the shield like that to be a sort of beam cannon, I guess. They're on the top of the shield, so you can just kind of fire that out like that anyway. And then down here for the legs, as you can see, look pretty cool with all that extra stuff on there. Again, very white, except for just the little bits of yellow and gray there. These circular bits on the sides of the knees and also for the sides of the elbow are actual separate parts, so that's pretty cool as well, something you don't normally see on a high grade, but considering the size of this kit, you can actually make those as separate pieces. The front skirts are joined together, but you can clip them in the center to separate them if you want. And the side skirts are the same as with the Penelope, but with the Penelope you couldn't really see them all that well. You can actually see them a little bit more now. Those will move up and down like that. And then once again, these giant, very Xeon looking back skirts here, these will move a little bit up and down, again mostly for like the Penelope transformation and all the stuff that it does, but just here those can move like that. And you have a separate gray piece inside, which is nice. And then also just the backpack, or lack thereof, just the back of it without everything on there, it does still look pretty cool. I think I like the vent details here on the back of the torso, so it still looks pretty nice. And the head, without all the extra stuff, actually has some pretty high articulation up to there, so it looks up very high and then down to there. And as some people were mentioning during the live stream, the head is very reminiscent of the GPO2, just the kind of chin guard there that it's got over the front of the red part, and then the very high camera on the top of the head. And just kind of the general menacing look of that is very reminiscent of the GPO2, I would have to agree. And last thing, just want to point out here on the underside of the feet, you still have some pretty full detail there, but you can see the plug-in points where the Penelope's feet armor are going to plug up onto the bottom of the feet there. And also, as you can see, plugging this onto a regular action base, just using that fork adapter I was mentioning before, is going to be a good option that you can use for this if you wanted to plug this onto just a regular action base. And then of course you have your flight unit plugged onto the base that was included with this kit, so that's a nice option if you want to get an extra base for the Odysseus Gundam here. You're actually going to be able to utilize a lot more of the articulation in there. There are still a couple of weak points. The rotation at the top of the arm is a little bit loose, so that can kind of cause a little bit of balance issues depending on how you're having it posed. If you want to have the arm or the rifle raised in a certain position, that weak point of rotation there can cause a little bit of trouble, I think. And so I think the Odysseus Gundam here is looking pretty awesome as we're just trying out a couple poses. Let's just finish up the review by taking another look at a few poses of the Penelope, and I'll give you guys my kind of final thoughts on the kit. Alright, so now that we've got it back as the Penelope, I've got to say very mixed opinions about this kit. Number one, it's expensive, so you're gonna really have to want it if you're gonna pull the trigger to get it, because with the list price of 7,000 yen, it's gonna be costing quite a bit. But as you can see, there's a lot of plastic in here. It's a very big kit, so you can see where that price is coming into play just for the sheer amount of plastic that you have in the box. And you do have some nice options. Well, as far as it's like weapons, accessories, you just have the beam rifle and then a pair of beam sabers. That's pretty much it. You have some nice hand options, but really the majority of your options is going to be whether you want to display it as the Odysseus Gundam with the fixed flight unit separately, or is the Penelope Gundam in its just regular form, or in the flight form. So you have some different options there that you can choose from, so that's nice. With it being an HG kit, of course, it does have some of the typical flaws of some seam lines here and there, and some missing color apps, small little bits of color apps. Overall though, I think the color separation is pretty good for an HG kit, but again, just because of the sheer size of it, don't think that was the hardest thing for Bandai to pull off with this, so I'm not going to give them too much credit on that one. Overall, the details are pretty good, and you have some areas that are really nicely detailed and some areas that are pretty wide open. You could definitely go in and add some more detail in those areas if you wanted to, but if you weren't going to do that, you will have some pretty big spaces with not a whole lot of detail going on them. And then as for the articulation, it has a lot of the basic articulation that you would expect for an HG for the most part, but especially if you're going to be displaying it in the Penelope form, you're not really going to be able to do a whole lot with that. It's pretty much a brick kit as the Penelope. It's got the articulation there, but unless you're willing to go in and like tighten up some of the joints and things like that, just straight out of the box, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot with it other than just in like kind of a standard standing non-action pose. But of course, if you're willing to go in and do some work on tightening up the joints, maybe even pinning a couple of the joints permanently just to make sure you're getting that full stability, and then even if you were to go in and add some more details, some plot plating or some scribing on some of the big wide open areas, and then of course giving it a full paint job, then it's going to be looking pretty awesome, I've got to say. So as far as what you get in the box, it's a really cool kit, but there's definitely a lot of space for improvements if you're willing to flex your modeling muscles a little bit. So yeah, I would just say it's a cool kit, definitely a very unique one to be sure. So if you like it and you're willing to spend a little bit of money on it, I would say give it a try. If you're not really too into it, then I would say it's a one that you could definitely pass, just because it is going to cost so much. I wouldn't really recommend you just dropping that much money on a kit that you're not really too sure of. There's a lot of really cool and really great kits out there that you could spend your own money on, and if you're not really too into this, then I'd say just give it a pass. But in conclusion, I just do really appreciate the fact that we're getting more obscure stuff like this from Bandai. It's nice that we're getting Hathaway's Flash coming out so that we can actually finally get a kit of the Penelope. It's been an obscure design that I know a lot of people have been fans of for a long time. This and the Cassie as well, and hopefully we'll get a kit of the Cassie. I'm thinking we're probably going to get that as a 1/100 scale kit, whether it be RE100 or a full-on master grade, we'll have to see. But it's always nice to get kits of some of these more obscure designs, so I'm always happy about that. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you have any other further questions or comments, anything that I missed or anything like that, of course, just feel free to let me know there in the comments section. Thank you for that. Again, thank you to USA Gundam Store for their support, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.